What is the difference between grounded leadership and control? How can you tell the difference between someone who uses their power to inspire versus someone who uses their power to control? I dive into that in this episode.
You are listening to the Sound Therapy Network podcast, where we talk about all things sound healing. This podcast is for practitioners and clients who want to learn more about this magical healing modality.
You are listening to the Sound Therapy Network podcast. I am your host, Niaje, embodiment coach, owner of Bliss Wellness Studio in Tampa, Florida, and the creator of Somatic Sound Therapy. This episode is really great for anyone who is in a leadership position and really great for practitioners. Because sound therapy is powerful, I always say with great power comes great responsibility. As things shift in our society, and the veil becomes thinner and the wool is being removed from our eyes, we are waking up to how many people actually abuse their power. How many people, even in the spiritual community, abuse their power. So how do we differentiate between grounded leadership and someone who is using their power for armor, control, or manipulation? If you've been listening to me for a while, you know that I love Brené Brown, and Brené Brown talks a lot about grounded leadership versus armored leadership. So a lot of what I share has heavy influence from her work, plus my own research, lived experience, and data specifically from the healing space. So let's dive in. What is grounded leadership? If you look up the definition of grounded leadership, you will find a lot of rigid or masculine definitions about knowing what's right, staying calm, and you may even see frameworks that say be authentic. But grounded leadership isn't about perfection. It isn't even about having all of the answers. It's not about pretending you always have it together. Those are outdated models of leadership. Grounded leadership is the ability to lead from a place of emotional regulation and integrity. It's leading with self-awareness, accountability, and compassion, while staying connected to our body and nervous system. What grounded leadership is not. It's not about perfection. It's about presence. It's not about having all of the answers. It's about self-awareness, accountability, and vulnerability. Grounded leaders can admit when they're wrong, validate someone else's experience, understand the yes and perspective, knowing that two different perspectives are still valid. Grounded leaders lead from grounded confidence and not ego, fear, control, or manipulation. So let's really break this down. I have 6 examples of what's not grounded leadership. Number 1 is needing to control or micromanage every detail. Sometimes when we feel out of control internally, that causes us to try to micromanage and control everything externally. At the time of recording this, I'm actually reading Brené Brown's new book, and she talks about the difference between a manager and a leader. Managers control and micromanage. Leaders inspire and want to help bring out the best in people. So number 2 is leading from ego, insecurity, or unhealed wounds. This can look like over-explaining, overcompensating, passive aggressiveness, and putting people down rather than lifting them up. Also, over-identifying with a role or title. That energy that says, I know best, I'm the healer, I'm the boss, I'm the guru, I'm the one in control. My idea is always best. And that attitude definitely creates disconnect rather than an environment with connection and safety. And obviously within reason, because if you're in a leadership position, then there is some expertise around a certain topic, but there's always room for growth, and grounded leaders have a growth mindset. Number 3 is avoiding feedback or deflecting accountability. This is huge, especially in the healing space. And no one likes negative feedback or even constructive criticism, but it's important that leaders do their shame work and build shame resilience to truly embody that growth mindset and learn how to receive feedback to expand and become better. Grounded leaders also have discernment on what's relevant feedback versus what to take with a grain of salt, but they create a safe space for people to provide feedback. Number 4 is using fear, shame, or manipulation to maintain power. When someone reminds you that they're in control and they can pull the rug from up under you if you don't fall in line, that's using fear, shame, or manipulation to maintain power rather than inspiring people, rather than motivating people and nurturing them to want to be a part of what is going on. There's definitely a difference. Number 5 is confusing confidence with superiority. True confidence comes from self-awareness, groundedness, and humility. It's internally knowing your skills, gifts, and value without needing to prove it to anyone, without needing that external validation, really being grounded in who you are and not needing to overcompensate or prove something. Superiority, on the other hand, comes from ego and insecurity. It often masks self-doubt with arrogance and dominance. Instead of creating safety and inspiration, it creates hierarchy and disconnection. And Brene Brown always says control is the near enemy to connection. So when we're trying to control a dynamic, we're actually creating disconnect versus cultivating connection. Here's a very important nuance. Often leaders feel like being the expert means they're above others rather than in service to them. In our trauma-informed sound therapy practitioner certification and in our mentorship, we talk about the difference between power over versus power with. Do we want power over people, or do we want to have power with people? There's a difference. Power over is I'm over you, I'm more important than you. Power with is we are powerful together. And that is grounded leadership. Number 6 is speaking at others instead of speaking with them. Another thing we discuss in our trainings is compassionate language. We're not telling people what they need to do, what they should do. We're not controlling their journey or speaking at them. We're also not pathologizing them and making them feel like they are the problem. We're in it with them. We're in the arena with them. We're human too. We make mistakes as well. We are also on our healing journey. Leaders that want to be put on a pedestal usually need to feel above people, but that's typically masking unhealed wounds or insecurities or shame. Speaking with people is saying, hey, I'm in this with you. Believing them when they share their views, validating their experience, honoring their opinion or perspective, even if we don't agree. That is grounded leadership. We don't have to agree to respect someone's perspective. And when it's my view is right, your view is wrong, my way or the highway, that is coming from a place of control and not grounded leadership. There are very distinct differences between grounded confidence and superiority. The key differences are grounded confidence is rooted in self-awareness and self-trust. Superiority is rooted in ego and fear. Grounded confidence is open to feedback. Superiority deflects, projects, and resists feedback. Grounded confidence creates collaboration. Superiority creates hierarchy. Grounded confidence inspires safety and growth. Superiority dismisses, minimizes, invalidates, intimidates, or belittles others. Grounded confidence feels compassionate, secure, and humble. Superiority feels performative and defensive. I want to remind everyone that leadership is a learned skill, grounded leadership especially. So that is why I incorporate emotional intelligence in our training programs. So hopefully practitioners are understanding the power that they hold when they are creating containers, and they use that power to cultivate safety and expansion rather than replicating dynamics of control or oppression. There's a lot going on in our society right now, and the old paradigms are crumbling. So this is really important for us to understand how power has been abused, and understanding that that's not grounded leadership. As sound therapy practitioners, we are holding space for others. We're holding an energetic space for others, and that comes with real influence. And are we using that influence to lift others up, or to stroke our own egos with a false sense of control? And I will say, none of this is in the conscious mind. I don't think people go into these spaces purposely trying to control people, but so much of how we were taught to relate was based in fear, control, and manipulation. So it's very easy to replicate those dynamics in the healing space if we haven't actually done the work to unlearn some of the harmful programming. There's so much fear and control in the world, especially right now, and replicating those dynamics where people are coming to us for healing is actually really harmful. So let me give you an example. If you have an experience with just a random person in the world or on social media, it's one thing. There's a lot of unhealthy interactions these days. But if you go into a space where it's supposed to be safe, it's supposed to be welcoming, and it's supposed to feel like belonging and nurturing and compassion, and then it replicates the dynamic of control, fear, and manipulation, or gaslighting or pathologizing, that's even more harmful, because they came to this space for healing, for safety. So that creates even more responsibility for practitioners to understand these dynamics and continue to learn. If a person goes into a space that is supposed to be safe, and they're met with some of the same patterns as the outside world, that can create hopelessness. That can make a person feel lost or stuck. And that's the opposite of what we are trying to create in our sessions. That is why it is so important for practitioners to do this work and be trauma informed, to understand these dynamics and start to learn the skills of grounded leadership and unlearn some of the harmful ways that we were taught to relate, and adapt emotional intelligence so we can be emotionally safe practitioners. When practitioners lead from groundedness, that creates emotional safety, and we're building our practices and holding space with integrity. The more grounded we are in our own healing, the safer and more powerful our containers become. Grounded leadership is what keeps this work sacred and embodied. I also want to say that we don't always get it right. These are learned skills that take time to not only learn, but integrate and start to embody. And we won't get it right every single time, but showing up and doing the work, receiving quality trauma-informed care, and making sure that we have frameworks to check in to make sure we're operating from a place of integrity and alignment. The work that we do is important and powerful, and again, with great power comes great responsibility. Please share this episode with someone who is in a leadership position. These are such important things for us to understand when we are doing this work and creating safe containers. Again, we may not always get it right, but it's not about perfection. Grounded leaders can take accountability and take the steps to create compassion and connection. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. And until next time, wishing you healing and harmony.
Thank you so much for listening to the Sound Therapy Network podcast. Edgar Cayce says, sound is the medicine of the future. The future is now. By listening and sharing this podcast, you are contributing to the wave of healing in the world and safety in the healing space.